Every great success story has something hidden underneath it, a backstory that doesn't make the highlight reel. And when it comes to Matt Armstrong's rise in the automotive world, that hidden layer has a name: Tony Armstrong, his dad. Fans who followed the channel for years have watched Tony pop up time and again in the background, handing over tools, dropping quiet advice, or simply being there. But watching isn't the same as understanding. For a long time, nobody really knew where Tony's role ended and Matt's began. And now that the truth has finally come out, the whole story looks completely different. The talk started small. A few comments here, a forum thread there. People inside the automotive community began whispering about just how involved Tony really was. As the channel grew bigger, so did the questions. Was Matt doing the work himself, or was an experienced mechanic quietly carrying the weight while the camera rolled? Did growing up with a garage father hand Matt an advantage that other creators simply never had? These weren't unfair questions. They were the natural result of watching something successful and wondering what was really powering it. But here's where it gets interesting. The answers turned out to be a lot more complicated than the rumors suggested. The working relationship between Matt and Tony wasn't built on favoritism. It was built on something far more practical. Two people with completely different skills filling in each other's gaps. Tony brought decades of hands-on garage experience, the kind that only comes from years of getting your hands dirty before the internet even existed. Matt brought something Tony couldn't replicate, an understanding of cameras, editing, storytelling, and how to build an audience from scratch. Neither one was carrying the other. Each one had something the other needed. That balance is exactly why their work together always looked genuine rather than staged. Still, one question refused to go away: money. People assumed that having access to a family garage meant free tools, free workspace, and free parts. And if that was true, didn't that make everything a little too easy? Tony pushed back on that idea directly. Even during the years when BMX was taking up most of his energy, Matt was working part-time jobs to fund his life and his projects, delivering food, working bars, putting in hours at automotive retailers and tuning shops. Parts had to be paid for. Nothing was handed over for free. The garage was a place to learn, not a place to skip the hard parts. That changes things, doesn't it? But one doubt still lingered in the background. Who was actually turning the wrenches on those early builds? This was the question that really got people talking. Some viewers found it genuinely hard to believe that a young creator still learning the trade could complete complex restorations without heavy input from someone with Tony's experience. And fair enough, the builds weren't simple. Tony gave a straight answer. The work was Matt's. Advice flowed freely, mistakes got corrected, and guidance was always available, but the tools stayed in Matt's hands. That's how real learning works. It's messy, it's slow, and it gets better gradually. And if you go back and watch those early videos, that progression is right there on screen. The results weren't perfect from day one. They got better over time, which is exactly what genuine learning looks like. Bigger collaborative projects like the Ferrari F430 sparked a fresh round of speculation. People assumed Mutt must have taken over by that point. The reality was simpler. Both worked side by side, each handling what they knew best. Experience and enthusiasm working together. And when you step back and look at the full picture, a clear pattern emerges. Every time the channel grew, new questions appeared. Every time those questions got answered, new ones took their place. That's what happens when a family works publicly. The scrutiny never fully disappears. But what the full story revealed wasn't an unfair shortcut. It was two people standing beside each other, each contributing something the other genuinely couldn't replace. And that combination turned out to be the real engine behind everything. Watch any build video closely, and you'll notice something about Tony that sets him apart from a typical guest or support act. He never just stands there. He spots details others miss, asks the right question at the right moment, and steps in with calm suggestions that quietly redirect the work without taking it over. That's not a performance. That's someone who spent a lifetime in garages and can read a problem the way other people read a room. And what it does for the atmosphere of the workshop is hard to overstate. Instead of a polished production set, the garage feels like a real place where real people are figuring things out together. Does that make it easier to watch? Absolutely, because honesty on camera is rare, and this channel has a lot of it. The presence of family changes the texture of everything. When Tony appears, the tone shifts. Conversations happen instead of presentations. Reactions are genuine instead of rehearsed. And when something goes wrong, which it often does, Tony's calm response to Matt's frustration creates a kind of dynamic that audiences instinctively connect with. One person brings decades of pattern recognition. The other brings curiosity and a willingness to try things that experience might talk you out of. When those two energies meet in the same workshop, the results feel earned rather than engineered. And there's one moment that made all of this crystal clear. In 2025, Matt took on a flood-damaged Aston Martin DBX, not as a regular build, but as a surprise for Tony. From the moment that was revealed, the project felt different. The repair work wasn't the point, the meaning behind it was. Years earlier, Tony had offered tools, advice, and quiet encouragement before any audience existed to see it. This build was Matt's way of saying he remembered all of that. And when the finished car finally appeared, the reaction said everything words couldn't. Over 6 million views, not for the car, for the moment, for the bond that had been building in the background of every video for years. That kind of trust between two people doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't disappear easily either, which matters a great deal, because what's coming next for this team is bigger than anything before it. By the end of 2025, the scale had shifted dramatically. A damaged Bugatti Chiron Pour Sport entered the picture, one of around 60 ever produced, declared a total loss by insurers after a serious incident, and then sent to auction. Matt flew to Miami to inspect it personally. Just sit with that for a second. A machine built at that level, written off completely, now being considered for a full rebuild. Most people would walk away. Matt moved closer, and that decision set the tone for everything that followed. Nothing about the Bugatti project was simple. Sourcing parts for a car that exists in such tiny numbers isn't a matter of placing an order and waiting for delivery. Every component required deep connections in the automotive world, precise technical knowledge, and patience that most people simply don't have. A single wrong move could cost enormous amounts of time and money. Meanwhile, a second project quietly arrived alongside it, a crashed Ferrari F430, previously used as a rental car, already worn from different drivers and different habits, then hit on top of that. The rebuild wasn't just about repairing damage, it involved sourcing original factory-spec parts and fitting a Capristo exhaust system, turning restoration into something closer to reinvention. Two high-stakes projects running at the same time, and one question sitting underneath it all. What happens when something completely unfamiliar shows up mid-build, when a system refuses to behave the way it should, and the manual doesn't have the answer? That's where Tony's presence became less of a bonus and more of a foundation. Decades of hands-on experience builds a kind of instinct that's almost impossible to teach directly. You either have it or you're still developing it. Tony had it, and that made the difference on projects where guessing wasn't an option. But beyond the technical side, something else was happening in that workshop. A relationship that had started years ago was continuing to grow through shared pressure, shared setbacks, and shared wins. That kind of partnership doesn't weaken under complexity. If anything, it gets stronger. Tony showed no signs of stepping back. If anything, as the projects got more demanding, his involvement became more important. The workshop itself had changed too. What once was a space for learning the basics had quietly become a place capable of handling some of the most complicated automotive work imaginable. That kind of evolution doesn't happen by accident. It's built through years of showing up, taking risks, and refusing to let the difficult jobs stay difficult forever. And at the heart of it all sits one idea that keeps driving everything forward. The belief that even the most damaged machine, given enough skill and patience and care, can find its way back. That belief started in a family garage years ago, and everything since then has been proof that it works.